Thanks for staying with us here on Morning Live. Now, the South African National Editors Forum, SANEF, cautions that budget cuts proposed by the South African Broadcasting Corporation, the SABC, should not curtail critical services such as regional programming and African languages. And this follows the public broadcaster forging ahead with its ongoing retrenchment process to reduce the remuneration costs to the organizations. And concerns of transparency in the process have also been raised, and the SABC senior management has been accused of imposing the process with little consultation. But most critically, an alarm bell has been rung that a reduced workforce capacity, as reflected in the proposed structures, could actually obliterate the organization's mandate and undermine the public's access to information. SANEF chairperson Sibusiso Ngalwa joins us now to discuss this further. Sbu, thanks for your time. Welcome to Morning Live.
Thank you for having me, Sakina, and good morning to the viewers at home.
Sbu, can we just start by looking at the mandate of the public broadcaster? Because very often, even listening to legislators, you get the sense that people don't understand the public service mandate of the SABC.
I think it's probably because people just look at the SABC as a broadcaster and sometimes look at it as in no different from the other private broadcasters. But I mean, as part of that very mandate, the SABC has a public service mandate, which means that it has to cater for communities and also for the South African society in its entirety, including in terms of language, and making sure that it also has a far-reaching imprint or footprint in various areas across the country. I mean, we do understand that journalism as a public good is necessary for the functioning of any democracy. So that places the SABC at a central role, as does other media, but as a public broadcaster, it somewhat has a more of an extended role in terms of what it has to do to ensure that in periods like now, as we have the coronavirus, the SABC is able to disseminate, to carry out its professional news service and deliver that news to the various communities throughout. Obviously, there is the element of entertainment, and there is the responsibility for the SABC to also make sure that there is adequate dissemination of information at this crucial moment.
And of course, this is one of the concerns that SANEF has expressed, being alarmed by the SABC's plan to do away with some of its regional offices. And how exactly, perhaps to explain to the public, is this going to impact upon that public mandate and specifically the offering that the public will receive?
Let me explain it this way, Sakina. Between March and June of this year, SANEF conducted a dipstick survey, which was research which was looking at the immediate impact of the coronavirus on the industry. We knew what was happening, we could see what was happening, but we just wanted to get a broader understanding of the impact. And it kind of confirmed what we knew all along, which is that we had no less than 700 journalists losing their jobs during that period. We've seen magazine publishers close down, but more importantly, there are no less than 80 small print publications that have closed down across the country. Where are those print publications located? Those are small local knock-and jobs and small publications in those very regions, which then means that in terms of a news service and a news offering, those communities are actually left out. For us as SANEF, that now underlines the importance of an institution like the SABC, because it has this unique footprint in reaching those areas and also in terms of language offering, because those regions are also important for that, to make sure that indigenous African languages are promoted and that the people in those communities continue to receive their news. So our concern is that while we understand that retrenchments and restructuring may somewhat be inevitable at some point, but it must be done in such a way that it does not compromise the SABC's public service mandate and does not decimate the voice of the SABC in those areas. Because as I've given you those statistics about 80 small publications closing down, that tells you why now we need the SABC to step up. Actually, in fact, we do not need an SABC pulling back, but rather making sure that all those areas are covered in this crucial period.
Spoo, what do you think is the solution for SABC management under the current circumstances?
I may not have the magic wand, Sakina, but I think that it is important for the SABC management, including the board, to actually make sure that the public broadcaster is stable at this period. We know how destructive the instability is for in the various institutions. I mean, we've seen this movie before. We've seen fights within boards. So I think for us, we are equally concerned about the instability that is brought about. We saw the disagreements within the board, and it's not unusual for people to dissent, but I think it must be done in such a way that it does not compromise the offering or the standing or the operations of the institution. So what we would be interested in is to ensure that management and the employees at the SABC, I mean, if you watched, I mean, all of us in this country saw that clip where Griselda was making that impassioned plea, and we all felt it because we know that journalists have actually been at the forefront, have bore the brunt of COVID-19. I mean, we've had shows, you would know what it takes to put together a show where you have one infection and the entire crew has to go in isolation and what that means for the offering. But the point is, throughout all the time, we kept the screens, we kept the newspaper pages filled, we kept the screens and made sure that there was no blackout. So these issues are sensitive. So in how they are handled, that sensitivity has to be considered, and also make sure that there will never be a homogeneous block. We don't expect a board or management or everyone to agree to be one group that works in a haze as one herd in a particular direction, but there has to be a process that is managed and that is done in such a way that it does not compromise the SABC's ability to do its job. And also, more importantly, sorry, Sakina, that while we may have had this period, we would like also the management to make sure that going forward that actually they do not victimize some of the employees or some members of management that have spoken out during this period.
Now, Spoo, a few days ago, SANEF said that it would seek audience with the SABC's executive on some of these developments to try and get a deeper understanding and also to hear the SABC's view and their vision for the future. So the issues have been very public at the moment. Why has it taken, some would ask, SANEF, until the letters of retrenchment to staff were issued to actually request that meeting?
I think the point there, Sagina, is that the meeting became crucial because we saw how destructive this was. Because the reality is we cannot stop the SABC from restructuring. We are in various companies and we've seen the destruction of coronavirus across companies. But what became an issue for us is when it became clear that there might be a threat and there are issues that are being raised about the SABC's ability to carry out its mandate. Because the issue is SANEF, I know people would like SANEF to get involved in shop floor issues in companies, but as a professional body, we are limited by our mandate, which is to ensure that we look out for, we champion media ethics and also media freedom, but also understanding the SABC's unique position. That's why we then said we need to, at this point, get to understand, because when the SABC announced retrenchments in July, we did at that point speak out publicly to say we're concerned about those retrenchments and how they would affect the SABC and the industry. And also we would be watching, looking at how it actually impacts the industry going forward. So what we have done at this point is that in calling for that meeting is actually to get an understanding, because there are different narratives that are coming out as to what exactly is at play, what that structure looks like, and also how that impacts on the vision of the SABC going forward. So in calling for that meeting, it is actually to get that understanding, and we will be having actually that meeting this afternoon, Sakina, with the CEO of the SABC, Mr. Ngalwa.
So we look forward to hearing what comes out of that, Spoo, and please, we'll have you back just to discuss those developments with you as well. But thanks so much for your time this morning. Chairperson of SANEF, Sibusiso Ngalwa, sharing the forum's view as the SABC plans to do away with some of its regional offices, amongst others, in that new organogram, and of course the devastating impact that this could have on the public's constitutional right to information and also to education. education. The South African National Editors Forum, that SANEF also cautions that budget cuts that are proposed by the South African Broadcasting Corporation should not curtail critical services such as the regional programming and African language offerings. And this, of course, follows the broadcaster forging ahead. It is going ahead with the retrenchment process to reduce the numeration costs to the organization. So we're going to leave it there for now, and we'll continue. We'll have more talk about SABC related matters after 7:30. Right now, though, Valen standing by with some sports news.